beautiful Wednesday. I pray that you are having a good day so far, that your morning is going exactly how you want it to go, that everything is kosher. I want to say thank you so much for being with me again today. This is season two, episode three of this particular season. And I am so excited to be with you today and to talk with you about leadership and just about the Word of God. It excites me every time I get to do it. And so I'm so thankful every time that you join with me, that you log on and are with me during this time. I want to say before we get started, as always, make sure there's three ways that you can help me get this broadcast out there. Comment on this broadcast, engage in the content, share this broadcast, and tag three friends in the comments. That way they know that you're listening to something and maybe they'll log on and listen to it as well. So if you wouldn't mind helping me in that area, I would certainly appreciate it. We've been talking about Gideon for the last few episodes. And so today I got to thinking, there's so many great, inspiring leaders in the Bible, so many great Bible characters that we can learn leadership principles from. And so I just thought, you know what? I'm going to try to find 12 that I think would inspire me. Obviously, there's more than 12 great inspirational leaders in the Bible. But these are just 12 that I thought were great. And so we're going to kind of talk about them. Some I have done complete lessons on. And so you may hear something repeated or said again. They say when you're preparing a sermon, a lot of times that nothing is new under the sun. Same thing goes for leadership. A lot of times we may think that we've got a new concept down or a new program, but somewhere somebody has done something either similar or has done it before. And so today I just wanted to bring to you 12 of what I feel is the most inspiring leadership lessons from Bible characters. We know the Bible has been around for thousands of years, right? It's been one of the best sellers, number one seller for I don't know how long. It's been on the best sellers list, but for years and years and years, maybe even centuries, that has been number one on the sellers list. It has been a scapegoat for a lot of people. It has been a source of strength, and it's been a source of not so much strength, if I could put it that way. Some love the book, some hate it. It depends on who you talk to. But when examined, I feel outside of a religious context, I believe that it is a great book, right? Because there's so many principles, so many things that you can apply to your day-to-day life that will help you along the way. And it's funny to me how a book that was written so long ago, there's something in there that goes right along with what you're dealing with on that particular day and what you need. And so I even feel like for leaders of the business today, there's much to be learned from these ordinary people who made these decisions that transformed them into extraordinary people, right? Extraordinary legends. And so I believe, and that goes along with saying like every decision we make, good or bad, either makes us or breaks us, right? It just depends on how we respond to the circumstance or the decision that we have made. Because let's face it, we're not always going to make the right decision. As much as I'd like to think that every decision I've ever made in my life has been the correct one, that is far from the truth. It has not been the correct one. A lot of times I look back on decisions I made and thought, man, that was a stupid decision. Let's not make that one again. Let's not do that again. But there's been some decisions I've made that I thought, man, that was a good decision to make, whether it be for my family, for myself, or, whatever I'm leading, whatever I'm doing. And so we have to be able to, in the good times, take the wins when we get them. But on those bad decisions that we make, I think that what distinguishes good leaders from bad leaders is how they respond to the bad decision, right? Because a lot of times when we make a bad decision and let's just say we lose money in the stock market, or we had a business go bankrupt, or we had this happen in our life, a lot of times people just give up and they're like, whatever, maybe it ain't meant for me to be a leader. But I think true leaders, they respond to that and say, okay, well, hey, that didn't work. I'm going to brush myself off. I'm scraped and bruised a little bit, got a few cuts, but I'm going to brush myself off and move on to the next thing. We look at Thomas Edison, who created the light bulb. He failed so many times before he finally got it right. But if he had given up after the first time, the second time, the 10th time, the 100th time, we wouldn't have light bulbs today. And so I'm thankful for people who don't give up in the face of adversity in their life, in the face of even decisions that they've made that may not have been the right one, that have been a bad one, but they've made those decisions anyway, and they brushed themselves off and they moved on and found success in it. Organizational leadership is in dire need of that level of conviction, that level of saying, I'm not quitting, I'm not giving up, that level of determination that says, no matter how many times I fail, I'm going to keep trying, I'm going to keep moving forward. It may knock me back a few steps, but guess what? I'm going to gain those steps and more in this next try, this next go around. And so I believe that there's 12 characters of the Bible, and I'm not going to hold you long today. I'm going to try to keep it right at 30 minutes, and we're going to try to get out of here. But number one, Noah. To me, he represents leaders that do what's right even when they're alone. Right? We see it in Genesis 6. God is he is fed up with the wickedness that's going on in humanity at that time, going on in the world. And so he decides that he's going to wipe out the human race and start from scratch. And he finds this one man named Noah who had been a righteous man, who had lived a holy life, who had not been corrupted by the world, who had not been corrupted by the things. We know the story, right? God tells him to build this huge boat and to take every, 2 by 2, every kind of animal there is, get his family on the boat, and that they would be saved, right? And we see as he's boarding the ark, God says to him, for you alone have I seen to be righteous before me in this time. And so literally the whole world is doing the wrong thing. But we see this one leader in Noah who was determined to do what was right. And so, my mom always used to tell me when my friends were getting in trouble and I didn't understand why I couldn't hang out with them or go places. She'd tell me all the time, if all of your friends decided to jump off a bridge, are you going to go jump with them? No, my answer is always no, right? Because I'm not going to just follow the crowd. And she said and I believe that this is the same thing in life, is we have to stand for what we know is right even when everybody else is doing wrong. If we have to stand alone. And that can go within a spiritual context as well, right? We stand for truth whether anybody else doesn't stand for truth or anybody else at all. So even as a leader, we have to do what's right even when nobody else is doing it. If everybody jumped off the Empire State Building, I'm not jumping off the Empire State Building. Okay, y'all, they can jump off all together, and I'm gonna stand up there by myself on the top of the building, I guess, and watch them fall, because I'm not gonna do it. So I'm gonna stand for what I believe and what I know is right, even if nobody else is doing it. Number 2, we got Abraham. Abraham, he represents leaders that embrace the unknown, right? And this goes with stepping out in faith. God approaches Abraham in Genesis 12 and tells him, go forth from your country and from your relatives, from your father's house, from everything that you know, to the land which I will show you. In other words, Abraham is instructed to leave his comfort zone. And he is told, I want you to march forward into the unknown. I want you to march forward into something that you know nothing about, and trust me as God, trust me as your leader to show you where you need to go. As business leaders, that's a hot topic, right? Imagine risking uncertainty. Imagine risking everything you know for the unknown, right? Because you don't know. When you start out in business, you don't know where that business is going to go. You can put all the hard work you want into it, but if it's not something that people want, or a product that somebody wants, a lot of times it may fail. We don't know. It may be the greatest thing we've ever seen in our life. It may be the greatest failure. But we do not know until we are willing to step out into the unknown and see what it brings. Great leaders embrace that uncertainty, right? They know they're willing to take that risk because they believe in what they are doing. And so it was the same thing with Abraham, right? He believed in what God was telling him, so he was willing to leave everything that he knew behind, his comfort zone, his relatives, his family, his friends, nieces, nephews, whatever you want. He was willing to leave all that behind for the unknown. Because they know this one truth, that no matter where it takes them in life, the promised land is waiting for them on the other side, right? So no matter where they go, they know that where they started and where they're going to go, and where they go is better than where they started. Even if it only takes them a little ways and they have to ditch that effort and pick up something else, they realize that when I step out into the unknown and take that chance, a lot of times I'll get the promised land that I'm wanting. Number 3, Joseph. Leaders endure in spite of circumstances. The story of Joseph's a powerful one to me. The guy who had a pretty tough life, right? He was, first of all, he was born into a family where his brothers hated him. Okay, they didn't like him at all. He was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. They told his father that he was killed by this wild animal. He was framed by his boss's wife because he refused to sleep with her. He was thrown into prison. He interpreted a dream for somebody, and then when that person got out, they forgot about him for a while. But in the end, Joseph became the leader of all Egypt, second to only Pharaoh himself, right? I'm sure a lot of times Joseph thought about throwing in the towel and giving up and saying, this ain't even worth it. All this trouble I'm going through. Trust me, I can relate to Joseph in this season of my life, in this season that I'm walking through right now, because a lot of times there's things that you have to endure when the enemy will attack and the enemy's trying to make you trip up and fall and falter. But we have to endure to the end. The race is not given to the swift, right? And so we just have to keep walking forward. And even leaders, right? When it looks like our business isn't going as fast as we thought it was, we're not making as money as fast as we thought we were going to make it. I know that the mantra is it takes 5 years to get a business established. And, even after that, sometimes it's iffy. But I think personally that if we endure in whatever we're in, whatever we're doing in life, whatever we're leading in life, if we just stand firm and endure to the end, we will be like Joseph, right? Eventually we're going to come out on top. Eventually God is going to promote us. Eventually we're going to get promoted on our jobs. And then when there's famine in the land, he was able to save his family from starvation. The very family that sold him into slavery, the very family that hated him, the very family that lied to their father and said he was killed by wild beasts, he was able to save from starvation because he was able to endure to the end. And when he sees his brothers again, he tells them they meant him harm, but God orchestrated all the events. What the enemy meant for evil, God turns around for our good. And so leaders, true leaders, always have a vision that sustains them through the difficult times. Right? That's why they always say, what's your 5-year plan? What is your goals? What are you looking toward? Because there's going to be times in your life where you're going to look at this and go, man, is this even worth it? But you keep your eye on the goal. You keep your eye on the end result that you're wanting. And you keep fighting. You keep scratching, clawing, crawling, whatever you have to do to get to where you are. But when you get to where you are, you'll be able to look back and say, what all this was for my good. And now look at me now. Number 4, Moses. Moses is the leader that stuck up for his people, right? We all know that God was very convincing to Moses to get him to go into Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Moses is native people. He hadn't really known them all his life. He knew he was different. He was raised in Pharaoh's home. He was raised in Egypt. And yet he knew that those people were somehow his people. And so God enlisted Moses. He enlisted Moses to go to Egypt and to lead those people to freedom. And when the time came, Moses was willing to step up and lead. I believe that true leaders stick up for their people. I believe that true leaders always try their best to be on the side of their people, right? Here at this school, I don't allow parents to go and just gripe out my teachers. I don't allow parents to go and to fuss at my teachers or, tell them off or whatever they're planning on doing. I make them tell me first, right? Because, and not all the time, so I want you to hear me. But a lot of times, some of it's not even worth telling my teacher. A lot of times it's pettiness that can just be worked out or pettiness that could be explained. Okay, but if I would allow a parent to go gripe and tell my teacher off and tell them what a dirty dog they are, all this stuff, that's just going to cause more problems. So I tell them, you tell me. And a lot of times, because my teachers come and tell me the situation, I know what's going on already. And so when they tell me, I can say, well, let me tell you from the teacher side of the perspective, or the teacher side of the story, and tell you why this is happening and why it's happening like it is. And by the time that conversation is over, a lot of time the parent will have a better understanding of why a certain thing is happening in their student's life, right? I tell our parents all the time, we won't believe everything your student says about you if you don't believe everything your student says about us. And so I try to the very best of my ability to make sure that I stick up for my people, that I'm sticking up for those that I'm leading at that time, to make sure that they are set up to do their job to the best of their ability without having to worry about things that they don't need to worry about. True leaders, in my opinion, uh, carry the biggest load, right? And they need to carry the biggest load, because leaders to me are servant people. They need to be able to lead people and to help people and to work with people and to just show people where they need to go. And so I believe that true leaders stick up for their people. Number 5, Joshua, I believe is a leader that rules by example rather than command, right? I've seen a lot of times leaders, they get a position and all they want to do is point their finger, you do this, you do that, go do this, go do that, while they seemingly sit on their throne in the spotlight, right? To me though, a true leader, I've seen this meme one time where it showed what a boss is: someone who is riding on the chariot with his whip on the people, and a leader is at the front of the pack helping to pull that chariot. So a true leader leads by example rather than by command. A true leader is getting their hands dirty rather than just tell people to get their hands dirty and you keep your hands clean. So in other words, like, we had a cleaning day around here. Well, guess what? Myself and my father-in-law were out there in the flower beds, digging around, pulling up weeds, planting flowers, making sure, cutting down, rotten limbs off the palm trees, all this stuff, because we understand that if we need to lead by example, if we want someone to do something, then we need to lead by example and show them that that's how it's supposed to be done. Joshua was supposed to be leading his people to a new land, right? Joshua offers the Israelites the option to either A, serve the God who they had always served, the one who had brought them into a land, or B, serve the gods of the surrounding areas. But he says, but as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And then the people answer as unison, right? So Joshua leads by example. He says, look, I'm going to give you 2 options of how this can go, but this is what we're going to do. And if you're a true leader that's leading by example, then people are going to follow you to the land or to the area or to the program or to the whatever it is that you're trying to lead them to, if they see that you are going there yourself, right? It would be like us calling a prayer meeting and then me and my wife never showing up to prayer meeting. People are like, well, if you are calling prayer meeting and then never showing up to prayer meeting, then what's the point in me coming to prayer meeting? So we have to understand that we can't just tell people, go do this, this, and this. There's a time for that. But a lot of times a true leader leads by example rather than command, right? A boss commands, a leader leads, right? So you can have a position and a title, but that doesn't make you a leader. A leader is going to walk beside those that they are leading. And a lot of times, every now and then, it's okay for a leader, when you're empowering people, to walk a step or 2 behind those that you are leading, so that they get experience and they get a chance to get hands on. Number 6, David. Leaders are not afraid of giants, right? Everybody knows the story of David. If you've been in church any amount of time, if you went to Sunday school, you've heard the story of Daniel. First Samuel 17, the Israelites have been defeated by the Philistines. They're 9-foot tall giant Goliath, right? Goliath taunts Israel. He's challenging them every day. Send a man to fight me. Send someone out to take me on. And David, a small shepherd boy, he couldn't even fit the armor that they provided him with, right? And so he wasn't big in stature, apparently, because he couldn't even wear what they wanted him to wear. And when Goliath mocks him, David tells him, like, you come with me with sword and spear and javelin and all this stuff, but I come to you in the name of the Lord. And with that, what does he do? He takes a stone and he puts it directly in the Goliath's forehead, and the giant falls. And Israel realizes that we can face any challenge as long as we have conviction and the strength and resolve on our side. And of course, as long as you have God on your side, right? So we can't be afraid of big tasks. It has been said all the time, if your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough. Dreams can be a giant. Dreams are a giant, right? Because they're a big goal that you're trying to reach. There's somewhere that you're trying to go, and you look at it sometimes and you see even the obstacles in the way are the obstacles that are going to try to prevent you from reaching the goal that you're trying to reach, and they look like 9-foot giants. They look like Goliaths. But we can't be afraid as leaders to not go for it anyway. We just have to trust that our convictions, that our strength, and our resolve to get to that area is going to be what takes us through. And we can bring down the mountains. We can bring down the giants. We can bring down the things that are trying to hold us back from that. Number 7, Isaiah. He's leaders that ride to the occasion. He's the epitome of that, right? And in a vision, Isaiah, God asked him, he should send a prophet to his people, and Isaiah responds, "Well, hey, hold on, here am I, send me." Leaders don't wait to see if anybody's going to step up, right? But leaders say, "Hey, I'll do it." True leaders say, "Hey, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it," right? They don't wait to see, well, let me see if somebody else is going to raise their hand. Let me see if somebody else is going to try to take it. No, they step up when something needs to be done without anybody else. They take the initiative. To me, that's a leader. That is a leader. A lot of times, a true leader to me, what I'm looking for in our church is they do things without even asking. They clean without even asking. They pick up trash without even being asked to do so. They do such and such without even being asked. They do this without even being asked. Man, to me, that is a leader, right? Someone who says, I see a need, I have a solution, I'm going to provide that solution. And so leaders do that. They rise to the occasion. They're the first to raise their hand. They're the first to stand. They're the first to make a decision. Leaders shun inaction and are always ready to take the plunge in a moment's notice. People to me that are just followers, they always looking to somebody else to see what they're going to do. Leaders don't do that. Leaders say, I got this. I got it. Let's go. I'm in. Don't worry about it. Don't fret yourself anymore, Pastor. Don't fret yourself anymore, boss. I'm on. I'm gonna take care of it. That's what a true leader is. So if you want to rise in your company, you want to get promoted. You want to rise in the community so people notice your business. You want to rise in your church and hopefully move up to a better leadership position than maybe where you are now. Then always be willing to rise to the occasion. Always be willing to first to say, I'll take care of that, Pastor. I'll take care of that. Don't worry about that, brother. I've got this, leader. I've got it. Don't fret no more about it. I've got it. So leaders rise to the occasion. Number 7, talk about Daniel for a minute. Leaders maintain their resolve without regard for consequences, right? Many of us know the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel, in Daniel 6, is highly esteemed government official whose colleagues became jealous. That's a whole lesson within itself, right? That's a mouthful right there. Esteemed government official whose colleagues became jealous. There, a lot of times when you are promoted or you are risen to the ranks of God or His kingdom or your company or whatever it is, sometimes people will get jealous. That's just the way it is. But we as leaders got to be willing to just say, whatever, go on about it, right? When you rise to an occasion, people are going to talk about you. They're going to say things about you. It's got to be like water on a duck's back. It's just got to roll off. You just got to rise above it, grow thick skin, and realize that they're just people. They're just humans. And sometimes people are going to do and say things that they probably wouldn't say if they felt like you were on the same level as them. So these people seeking to get rid of a man because they're jealous of him, this religious man. His colleagues convicts the king to enact a decree that says prayer can be made to no God except for the king, right? Once this decree is made, Daniel continues to pray and giving thanks to God just like he always did. Daniel said, you can make a decree all you want to, but my allegiance and my loyalty is to God, right? And so I'm going to keep praying because I realize that He's the prayer answerer and He is the one that's going to take care of my life. And so we as leader, we have to make sure that we are maintaining our resolve no matter the consequence, right? Uh, there's a company called OSHA that makes sure that people do things in a safe way. And so when I used to work in the plants, they would come out to the plants and make sure that scaffolding was put up correctly and that people were tied off correctly and wearing their hard hats and all these things, right? And I remember this one particular time, it wasn't me, but we were working on a reactor. The reactor was shut down, and they couldn't really build a scaffold to reach this one particular area. And so the foreman told this guy, said, "Look, why don't you just hang out there and work on it?" And the guy was like, "No, that's unsafe. It's not right. I can't do that, right?" And so people started talking about him like, "Oh, he's just lazy. He don't want to do this. He don't want to do that." But he stood his ground no matter the consequence, right? And when OSHA finally come out there, he took his complaint to OSHA about what that foreman was trying to get him to do and how unsafe it was. And guess what? The foreman got in trouble. The foreman got, as a matter of fact, the foreman got laid off because he was endangering the life of someone else. And so then all of a sudden, people wanted, "Oh, you did a great job." But in the beginning of it, people wanted to be like, "Oh, you're just lazy. You don't want to get out there and do it. You don't want to do this." But the guy was like, "No, it's unsafe. I'm not doing it because I could wind up getting hurt, seriously hurt, if something was to go wrong." And so that's what Daniel did. He said, "Look, you can make a decree all you want to, but I'm making a stand right now that I'm still praying to my God. I'm still going to follow my God no matter what you did." So what's the point of it? Daniel's faith in God is what made him great in the first place, right? It ain't within ourselves. So anything that we are as a leader, anything we are as a boss, anything we are as a pastor, anything we are as an assistant pastor, anything we are as a principal, anything we are as a business owner, anything we are as a manager, whatever you are, foreman, you are what you are because of who you serve, and that is God. And knowing this, he would not recant regardless of what happened to him. And so we know they threw him in the lion's den. Of course, we know the story, how God closed the mouth of the lions and was not harmed. Great leaders follow this example and maintain steadfast in their convictions, regardless of whatever the consequences are. I truly believe that if that guy had swung out there, off the scaffold, who knows? The harness he had on might have snapped. It might have gave way, and then we were pretty high up. I mean, we were up there. These racks, they're tall. He would have gotten seriously hurt, if not killed, if something had gone wrong. But yet he said, "I'm not putting myself in danger, nor this crew in danger, because my foreman is asking me to do something that's not right." And so we see what happens with Daniel, right? His conviction and his steadfast, and it was a witness to the king on top of it all. And so it let us know and I was just a young cat at the time. I was a young man at the time. I was in my early 20s, I believe, maybe mid 20s. And so it let me know that, hey, I can stand up and say, "No, this isn't right. And I'm not going to do that if it's going to put myself in danger or somebody else in danger." And so as leaders, we have to do that. We have to maintain our resolve regardless of the consequences. John the Baptist, leaders aren't afraid to call out phonies, right? John the Baptist in Matthew 3 is baptizing people, preaching about the coming of God. When pretentious, self-righteous group of religious officials come to hinder the baptism, he calls them out for who they are. He called them a brood of vipers, right? Leaders aren't afraid to call it like it is. Whether they are suppliers, employees, customers, leaders have what it takes to be brutally honest with the people they come in contact with. And so we have to be able to not worry. Now, I don't say purposely go hurt people's feelings, purposely hurt people, but we have to be willing as leaders to not worry about every now and then when somebody does get their feelings hurt, right? Because we're looking at the bigger picture. And if one person is trying to cause problems or make trouble or make fun of people, we have to be willing to stand up and say, "No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to act that way." And that's not going to happen. I'm running out of time here, so let me quickly move on. I got 3 more. Jesus, the leader of servants. One of the most powerful images of the life of Jesus is when he washes his disciples' feet. God, the creator of the universe, the one who hung the moon, the stars, spoke the earth into existence, created us out of dust. He, the one, if anybody has a right to sit on his throne and point and tell us how to do it, did it himself. He said, "Not only am I going to require you to do something, but I'm going to show you as an example. It goes back to what I said, right? Leaders lead by example, not by command. Jesus was the epitome of leading by example and not command. When he's finished, he says to them, you call me teacher and Lord. You're right in that. I am. I am the leader. I am that person. I am. For so am I. If then the Lord and teacher wash your feet. In other words, like if me as a leader, if I've done it myself, if I've got my hands in dirty, if I have led by example and not by just command, then you ought to do that for somebody else. And I believe that when we lead by example and not by command, as Jesus did, that others will follow in that example, right? It's like that whole pay it forward thing. Every now and then when we go through something, I'll just say, hey, whatever they got behind me, I want to go ahead and pay for it. And guess what? More than likely than not, most of the time, it starts this chain reaction where this next person will let me just pay for theirs then, and let me pay for theirs then, and let me do this, right? It's leading by example. You do kindness to somebody, a lot of times they'll show kindness to somebody else. So we lead by example, not command. And Jesus was the epitome of all that. So the example of that is great leaders wash their people's feet. In other words, great leaders make sure that they are serving the leaders under them, right? Great leaders are servants. Great leaders aren't bosses. We are called to lead, but we are called to serve in that leading. It's like a pastor. A pastor is called to pastor, yes, to shepherd. But he's also there for the people, to help them, to guide them, to counsel them, to pray for them, to be there in their time of need. And to me, Jesus was the greatest example of that. Number 11, Peter. Leaders recover from their failure. We all know Peter. Peter denied God 3 times. I mean, Peter had it rough for a while, right? And when the rooster crowed, he realized what he had done. And he weeps bitterly. So not only does leaders recover from their failure, but they also realize that when they've done something wrong, that they should be humble about it, ask for forgiveness, ask for, repent to God, or if they've done somebody else wrong, to ask for forgiveness from that person. But after that, we see Peter giving the first sermon after Jesus' ascension into heaven to a crowd of thousands of people, when he had previously just denied God in front of a bunch of people a few days earlier. So leaders don't become discouraged when they fail, right? And I talked about this a little while later, but we have to be willing to dust ourselves off. We don't wallow in self-pity. We don't give up due to mishap. We don't say, well, throw in the towel, that's nothing. But they pick themselves up, they continue on, and they do better next time. When I realized I messed up, I apologized to a student the other day, not too long ago. Or actually, it was last year, but because I thought that student had done something. I got onto that student. I realized later that student did not do it. It was somebody else. So I pulled that student in, and I said, I want you to know that I am truly sorry, and I apologize for saying that you did it. And I want you to forgive me. And I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to do a better job of digging into the situation before I just jump to a conclusion and just take the word of a couple of individuals and think, oh, well, that must be the truth of the matter. Let me go take care of it. But I should have done a better job as a leader investigating the situation just to make sure that student actually did what they're accusing that student of doing. And so when it all came down to it, that student didn't. So I did the right thing, and I brought that student in, and I apologized to that student and told them that I was sorry, and I asked for their forgiveness. And thankfully, they were willing to give that forgiveness. But number 12, I'm a little bit over time. Number 12, and this is the last one, Paul. Leaders are passionate about what they believe in. Paul is a zealous individual. He violently opposed the spread of Christianity for a while as a Pharisee, going out of his way to see Christians killed and imprisoned, right? So he was zealous about that. He was passionate about doing that. But when Jesus appears in Acts 9 and changes his mind, he becomes equally adamant and passionate about the truth of God. Paul travels across the all-known world spreading the message of Jesus and telling about his saving power and his healing power and establishing churches everywhere he went. So leaders are driven by a sense of purpose. Just like Paul, when he was doing wrong, he driven by a sense of purpose. He thought he was in the right. He was doing what he thought he needed to do. But after God brought him out, saved him, he was just as equally passionate and driven by that sense of purpose of making sure that the gospel of Jesus was spread everywhere he went. And so leaders have a fire lit under them and feel compelled to accomplish their objectives. Leaders have a sense of purpose. That people say all the time, when you do what you love, it's not work, right? So I love what I do. I love working in the kingdom of God. I love working with people. I love preaching the word of God. I love playing music for God. I love playing the drums for God. I love doing all this stuff in the kingdom. So for me, it's not really a job, right? Because I'm doing something that I love, that I'm passionate about, that I want to see accomplished. I want to see this church grow. I want to see this church grow not only in number, but grow in leaders and grow in people that are passionate about certain areas of the church, whether that's greeting or Sunday school teaching or ushering or taking up the offering or emceeing a service or playing an instrument or preaching or whatever it is, outreach, whatever it is. I'm passionate about it. I care deeply about it. So I want to see others do it. And so I believe that true leaders realize that there's no place for apathy in the life of a leader. But leaders always care, and they care deeply. And so what do we get out of this? Leaders are always a step above everybody else. They always try to live above everybody else. Whether that's right or wrong, leaders try to live a different life than most people because they realize that if I lead by example and I do what I'm supposed to do, that others will follow that example. And if I'm living a life of integrity, living a righteous life, and living a clean life before everybody else, then everybody else will more than likely follow that example as well. Thank you so much for being with me today. I hope something that was said has been a blessing to you. We'll see you again next week. Hopefully around this same time, 9 o'clock on Wednesday, if at all possible, or Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday will be one of those days that I'm with you again. But I hope something that was said today has been a blessing, and we'll see you again next Tuesday. God bless you.